Welcome to the Rural Recharge, a podcast from the Florida Farm Bureau Federation. The Rural Recharge is a guided conversation that allows you to cut through the noise and multitude of information out there. You should be able to trust your sources, which is why we're a platform that comes straight from the source of farmers and ranchers that grow what we eat, wear, and use every day. Our guest joining us today is Sarah Solano of Cedar Key Aquaculture Farms, located in Levy County. Cedar Key Aquaculture Farms is a family-run wholesale operation where they harvest upwards of 25,000 clams per week. You can find these clams in grocery stores from Miami all the way to Massachusetts. Mrs. Solano, thank you for being here today.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your family business. Tell us first about you, Sarah.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I am a 14th generation Floridian, a second generation clam farmer, and I'm also married to a third generation clam farmer. So we have strong roots here in the state of Florida. I work here at Cedar Key Aquaculture Farms, which is my family farm. I have 3 brothers that work here, and it's quite an adventure.
Is it quite an adventure because you got to work with 3 brothers?
Absolutely.
And so your parents, they're the ones that started this business?
Yes, sir. So my father was actually originally in the citrus industry. And once that had troubles, he wanted to make sure he had a business that he could pass on to his children who could pass it on to their children. So in 94, when the net ban occurred, the state came in here to Cedar Key to try to help all the working waterfront people because many people were without jobs.
That's right.
And so clam farming became introduced, and that was a whole change of pace for everybody. So my father got involved like many other people here did, and he started Cedar Key Aquaculture Farms, and that was near 30 years ago.
So tell us a little bit about what it is. What's the size of your operation? Give us a frame of reference. Here we are in Cedar Key, which is Levy County. We're on an island. That island has water surrounding it.
Yes,
and
sir.
you have an operation here that's a tangible asset, but then you have some submersible lands as well. Tell us a little bit about it.
So here at the farm, we do everything from planting our clams, processing our clams, and then we ship them out of here as well.
All right, Sarah, just stop right there. Folks are going to ask the question. You plant your clams. You actually have seed clams that you go out and place in soil, actually on top of it or in it. Explain that because folks aren't going to have any idea what we're talking about.
So our clam seed is exactly what you would think of when you're talking any other seed. So there are hatcheries here in our state, and some farmers actually have their own hatcheries as well. And they will spawn clam seed there, and it will grow. And we plant them in bags on the bottom of the ocean floor. So you'll stake these bags down, and they will stay there for about 3 to 4 months. And then we will take them back out of the water, and we will what we call break down the seed. So then we move the 4-month-old clam seed into a bag that has a bit bigger holes because the clams are going to grow. And we change the stocking density into those bags as well. So originally you'll start with every farmer does it differently, of course. So you'll start with about 12,000 baby clam seed in a bag. And
12,000, one bag.
12,000, and they're 4 millimeter clam. The seed is 4 millimeters. That's the size. And so you'll move those over into a different bag, and then you'll stock those roughly about 1,200 clams to a bag. So you start with, say, 8 bags, and then you'll break that down into however many more bags. And then after those 4 months, and you've replanted it, then those clams will stay there for about 12 to 15 months. So altogether, from it being a planted seed to when you're going to harvest these clams, it's roughly about 18 months of a turnaround.
A lot of risk, especially out there. So explain this to us, Sarah. We're on the island, and y'all have to go out. Your brothers are the ones involved in the water part of it. There's a submersible land out there. Who owns that land? How do you get access to that land? You stake them there. How's that work?
Yes, sir. So we lease our leases from the state. So if you look out of where we park our boats out at Dock Street here in Cedar Key. If you look out, you can see white PVC poles sticking out of the water. And that is how we mark our acreage out there. So you can have 1 acre, you could have 2-acre plots, or you could even have a 4-acre plot. And you contact the state and you have to pay yearly for these leases out there. And our personal farm, we have about 45 acres out there. And so that would be about 18 leases for us.
18 leases done with the state, and they are marked. Are yours all contiguous?
No, sir. So there are different areas out there. So we have different sections. So there's one section called Corgans, and that's a bit deeper than maybe Dog Island leases are. You have Sunray Venus leases. It's just all different plots, and they're all in different spots. So each one has a pro and a con to it. Some leases are deeper than others. Some leases have more of a sandy bottom. Sometimes it's just luck of the draw of which lease you get. Otherwise, you may try to buy leases from other farmers that you might prefer their lease over yours. So it depends on what type of lease you want or what type of lease you get.
Well, that's where I like production side of it. And that's why it really is fascinating to me, because it's different. And it's just like in farming, you have on land and arable land, there's different types of soils that you want and that kind of thing. But I guess my next question is what is your favorite? What is your most desired? What are the clams? How do they grow? What do they eat? What are they getting from there? And then next one, how many bags can you run per acre?
The clams prefer a not very sandy, but not very muddy as well. So there's like a in between that these clams thrive on.
So you don't want too sandy, don't want too muddy. That's right.
And it's all still trial and error for us here in Cedar Key. It's only been 30 years. So we are all still learning exactly what these clams thrive in. Do they do better in shallow water at sometimes? Certain stages of life, they do better in different depths of water. It depends on the heat as well. If I plant them in a shallow lease during the summer, they're more likely to die. So then I might plant my nursery seed on a deeper lease. It really all depends, and every farmer does it different. So it's a little hard for me to say. And also the bags to a lease question is a little hard to say because every farmer does do it different. Some people fill their acre totally full. Some people only use half of a lease because maybe one side of the lease is more muddy than the other. So it's really luck of a draw on how many bags you can get on your lease.
So Sarah, help me out here though. Don't clams naturally want to burrow in the sand? And so if they're in a bag, it makes it tough. But also, if they want to get out, they can get out, but a bag can get covered up. That's why mud can be dangerous, because it could actually smother them.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So the clams can bury up while they're in their clam bags because we stake them down. They are in the sand or mud, wherever you are. But no, that is true. They do not like to be totally covered by mud, and they will smother down there.
So with that, you're staking a bag, you're staking your seed, and here they are, they're involved. What are they eating? What are they going to grow?
So they're eating algae, that's what makes Cedar Key so special here, because we have an abundance of sea life here. We have a perfect combination of saltwater and freshwater here. So the algae thrives here, and that's what makes our clams grow so well. It really is such a pristine environment, and we have the lack of major pollutions compared to some farmers in other areas that have to deal with the harmful algae bloom called red tide, it's linked to heavy pollution. So here in Cedar Key, we thankfully do not have that much pollution out here in the water. So these clams when they're filter feeding, they are eating up that healthy algae, and they are thriving.
And so to give folks a little bit of better understanding, we're in Levy County.
Yes,
it
sir.
is not a heavily populated area here in this part of the state. It is a very,
knock on wood.
It is, and it has been for a long time, very sparsely populated, which doesn't allow for a lot of man-made influences into the waterway, which is what makes it part of what makes it so successful with the clam operation.
Correct. Yes, sir. We're very blessed to be here.
So when it comes to this particular venture, you were raised in aquaculture, you were raised in clam farming. Did you see yourself being involved in this today?
No, sir. Honestly, I did not. I had different career paths in mind. I went to college, did 1 year, decided to join the Army. I was an intel analyst for the Army. And simultaneously, I got my business degree through Liberty University. And then once COVID occurred, it was really laid on my heart that I need to be, one, with family because the world was getting crazy. And two, I could see the areas where we were struggling here at the farm, and I wanted to make sure I was doing everything I could to protect the family farm. So that's when I got involved about 5 years ago, give or take. I always had a passion for agriculture, grew up an FFA, officer, showing animals, great background with that. So I always had been passionate about it, but I didn't necessarily know where my place was with it.
So your place here is definitely on this farm now.
It sure is.
And you see yourself in the future staying with the farm.
I do. I do.
Now, most people don't realize, but you're one of 5 children in the family, and you're the only girl.
I am.
That makes it very interesting. And you work with 3 brothers as well. I can tell you what, you must be tough.
It is funny. Some of the guys joke on the water crew. They'll say to my husband, "I'm scared of your wife."
Well, I'm not scared of you, but I can tell you what, I respect you because it's a 14th generation Floridian, a 2nd generation aquaculturalist.
Yes, sir.
Living in a place that is very unique to Florida and not discovered by a lot of folks that want to develop here. It is a beautiful place, and it's a neat place to be involved in a very special part of agriculture. Sarah, tell us a little bit. Some people may not. You mentioned the net ban.
Yes,
the
sir.
net ban happened in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Explain what that was and why it's so special to come out and have clams here now.
So Cedar Key, along with some communities still in Florida, we are the last of the working waterfront people. So our ancestors from the very beginning have always used the water to feed themselves, from mullet, shrimp, anything, crabbing. So that is what people used to provide for their families here in Cedar Key up until this net ban, which the reason why the net ban occurred is because, there was the environmental issue of catching the wrong things in our net whatsoever. So that took a big toll on our industry here. And that is our history, though. We have always been working waterfront. We have always used the water to feed our families and the communities around us. So clam farming goes hand in hand with our heritage.
You said that so well. And you're a Solano, which
Yes,
is
sir.
very interesting because that's where I was raised. And we had this discussion earlier, but I was raised around a bunch of Solanos from St. Augustine. The net ban changed our community as well. We had a working waterfront of shrimpers, and the net ban totally destroyed that industry.
Right.
It was gone overnight with the stroke of a pen. And yet here in Cedar Key, there are these unique boats that go out and pull up the bags, and a whole nother industry was developed. And I believe the University of Florida had a lot involvement in bringing clams here, where my home, your family's original home, it's not there anymore, but here it's still, and it's thriving.
Yes, sir.
And it's all because of a creation of an industry with submersible lands and tied to the state, a university development of different varieties and breeds that you all could plant and actually are very marketable, very desirable. What makes your clams better than other clams in the country?
So we can grow a clam a lot quicker than the states with colder water. We can produce so many more clams than other states. So that's what makes us very desirable for stores or restaurants. We have a quick turnaround just because we have such great water here.
Great water, great place, great clams. That's what it is.
That's right.
Where can people buy your clams?
Our farm specifically sells to Costco. So you can find them in Costco's all throughout the state, all the way up to New York and all down the coastline.
See, we said from here to Massachusetts. I think that gets New York as well.
Right, yes.
All right. So you've been through some trials and tribulations here. I mean, 5 years, 4 hurricanes. What does that do to the clam itself? What does that do to the industry? Mm-hmm. How do you survive? I mean, we're talking 18 months.
Right.
Could be gone in 24 hours.
Yes. Yes. So it's been a challenging 5 years. Even before the hurricanes, if we discuss COVID, people here lost their sales to restaurants, grocery stores, casinos, wherever they were selling their clams. So we had COVID, loss of sales. Then we had bad summer heat, which killed our seed. And like you said, it takes 18 months for us to make a single dime off of our clams. And then we get smacked with these hurricanes, and Lord willing, we have a very quiet year this year. So it has just been a whirlwind these past 5 years. And if you want to talk about the effects on the clam during these hurricanes, it's unfortunately an effect that we feel every single day after the hurricane. It's very different than land farming because you can look out and see the damage. Right. You can't look out and see your damage in the water. You can try to pull all those bags, but you could not get to every bag. And by pulling them up, you may be risking hurting them even more. So it was a race after the hurricane to get out there, and you're fighting environmental factors such as things blown into the water after the storm. The water is not safe after a hurricane. So you want to get out there as quickly as possible to try to fix anything you can to see if you can save your clams. But ultimately, you cannot fix all of them. You can't save every clam you have out there. So every day when we pull bags of clams, we're seeing the effects. You're seeing an increase of dead clams in there. You're seeing some bags where there is not a single alive clam. And then in the next bag, there may be a few alive clams. So unfortunately, it's just something that we will just see the effects of for a long time.
Because of that, number one, 18 months is a long time that you've lost.
Yes.
You've lost market share. Now you've got to space that back out to even get aligned back in with what you have the ability to be able to handle.
Right.
Obviously, that we're talking a expansive time of economic loss.
Right.
And very troublesome. I mean, that's disturbing because you need income to keep this business rolling. Have you had any assistance, any help? Has the government helped, or have you found any ways to be able to find some kind of way to be able to survive?
Yes, sir. So thankfully, we have now been included in the ELAP program, which is a federal relief disaster fund that has been given to farmers. So before 2 years ago, we were not included in any sort of federal disaster relief fund. Of course, things would pop up here and there when COVID began. But if you had lost your crop 10 years ago, you were out of luck. That was what it was. So thankfully, during these past storms, we have had that ELAP. Now, that ELAP is not guaranteed, of course. Your claim could still be denied. Same with any farming, of course. So it is not a guaranteed check. And if our clams survived, we would have made even more. So it is not the cure-all, but we are very thankful that we have been included in that financial disaster relief, because without that, and Farm Bureau helped with this, without that ELAP or any sort of federal relief, we would not have a clam industry today. I can guarantee that, because how long it takes our crop to grow, and people cannot pour out and not receive anything back. That it's just too hard for the average person with the costs of just everyday living on top of farming costs.
Was the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services bridge loan, was that any help to y'all as well?
Yes, sir. There were other several loans and grants that we were able to use, such as the bridge loan, and we did get some assistance to help us rebuild our building here through our ag commissioner. So without that as well, I mean, do you pour into your building or do you pour into your crop? That would be our options there. So thankfully, to be considered for these assistants, that will help us rebuild our buildings so that we are better to withstand storms. We're not scrambling to fix everything the moment after a storm. I mean, you're staring at devastation, and your first thought is, where do I begin? So without any help, we would not be an industry at all.
Sarah, generally, and I'm in the vegetable business, I've been in the vegetable business all my life, and generally when it's supply and demand in a free enterprise and capitalistic system, and a lot of times when there is a shortage as a result of a devastating storm like a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster, markets go up, and they can compensate a lot of times for that. Did y'all see an increase in price, or is it just totally inelastic and very, very stable?
No, sir, we did not. We did not get an increase in price. It just remained the same. And to keep these accounts, I mean, you're wondering, how am I going to fill these orders? And you're not getting anything extra. So it was just a challenge. I mean, it still is a challenge right now.
Sure.
To just fill these orders and try to make ends meet where you can.
Absolutely. Now, how much of the state's production is here in Cedar Key in regard to clam production?
We have 90% of the state's industry here in Cedar Key.
That is a monopoly on it in this state anyway, that's for sure. So where else does your competition come from for clams? Is it other places? You mentioned colder waters earlier.
Yes,
is
sir.
there other places that grow clams that you can outcompete?
Virginia is a big clam producer. They have a long-lasting operation up there. Very interesting. Of course, up north, they wild catch clams up there. So it's a different type of clam, but their clam chowders or things that they're known for, that's their own clams up there. So you're competing with anybody up the East Coast. A lot of those states are involved in clam farming.
This is way out of bounds, but it's just we're off script anyway. But Sarah, when it comes to clams is an item that you see in certain menus, but if it's not available to the consumer, do they go to something else? Do they purchase another shellfish, or how does that work? Do you lose market share to something else if you're not in the market?
There are different shellfish, of course, as you know. A mussel would be the closest that I would say to a clam. And it just has a different taste, though. Everything has a bit of a different taste. Oysters, obviously, that's a total different texture.
Totally different texture, taste, everything.
Yes.
That's right.
We have scallops, which is a total different texture and taste as well, which you could sub scallops for clams. But I would say overall, if they have clams on the menu and clams are not available, they would just not have that dish.
I understand. So once you lose it, that's a fragile thing, because
Right.
once it's gone, they may not want to come back to clams. They may
Right.
find something that's more appealing, and then you can lose that market
Right.
share. That to me is a very dangerous thing. When you lose that crop, you've lost a crop for a long span of time, and y'all are still in a salvage mode trying to fill some orders along
Yes.
the way. And you're only fulfilling probably a percentage of what you had, because
Right.
that's all you have, trying to make it survive at this. And yet it's a somebody else could choose, say, well, we're not going to serve clams in our boiled
Exactly.
platter anymore. It's going to be, we're going to scallops, and that's a tough
Exactly.
situation.
Or if you want to discuss imported clams.
We can talk. We can discuss that. Why don't you go ahead and, I don't know if it's discuss or disgust I heard in your voice.
Right. Well,
Tell me what you're thinking.
so if you want to discuss if our American raised local Florida clams, if they are taken off a menu, that restaurant may be able to get it cheaper from one of our biggest competitors, which would be a Chinese clam. So without a Florida clam, it would just might as well be easier for them to get it elsewhere.
So, present situation we are in the United States, this administration, the Trump administration, has placed tariffs on some of those Chinese products
Yes,
coming
sir.
into this country. Would that be a help to the clam industry, American clam industry, the Florida clam industry?
I think the more we are able to buy American products, whether that's because it's hard to get them from other countries or the price is not there, I would say we need to do everything we can to support anything American and farm raised here.
That is very well said, Sarah. Very well said. And I hear cheers already going up, that's for sure. All right, talk to me about back to the clam industry as a whole here in Florida. Expanding, shrinking, stable. What do you think is the future for it?
Yes, sir. So we very well could be a booming industry if we had the support that every other farmer gets. There are sometimes maybe a bill that's passed or even just some relief funds that may be worded to where they aren't applicable to clams. For example, if there was funding for after a hurricane for fencing repair to be done for farmers, well, what's our fencing? That's our clam bags. Does that apply to us or not? So we can be a booming industry and we can last longer than the 30 years we've been here already if we become more of a commodity that's not just viewed as a luxury commodity. That's what I've heard before. Well, clams aren't necessarily necessary for us, so they're a luxury commodity. Well, we're not. We're just as essential as any other farmer. We have so many health benefits just from consuming a clam. They are packed with great things just in that little shell.
Talk to me. Tell me why I need to eat more clams.
Yes, sir. Well, first we could start with zinc. That's an incredible source. So many vitamins, and I could not list them off the top of my head, but I'll tell you what, if you do some research, you would be shocked to see. And the same thing with oysters and other shellfish. They are packed with so many good things for us.
I can tell you this. I'd rather eat a clam than an oyster. That's just personal. That's all I got to say.
Well, me too, but
let's go back, Sarah, and talk a little bit about environmental.
yes.
Clams they're taking algae, they're eating it, they're consuming it, make it a valuable protein for us to consume. There are also other environmental impacts that they have that are positive. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. So a single clam can filter feed 4.5 gallons of seawater per day. So imagine the millions of clams that are off of our Cedar Key Island right here. Imagine how much water they're filter feeding as we speak right now. And they also can filter feed 0.09 grams of nitrogen out of the water as well. And so no matter where they are, they're benefiting the ecosystem, whether you're using them for restoration, to clean up an area, to use them to protect the coastline, or if you're consuming them. No matter where these clams go, they are bettering everything they touch. So they are like a powerhouse.
So if they are in an area that is heavily developed and has other things that are coming in that are not healthy, other stuff that comes, and we've talking about especially associated with red tide, could that be harmful to the clam? I mean, the clam is taking that in, they're ingesting that water, and are they filtering bad things as well as good? So
they are filtering the bad stuff in the water. However, it does not go into their meat.
Okay.
So you can test a clam, and they do have testing through the state. There's one testing called the ELISA test, and that is when they test the meat of the clam. However they do it, they test the meat of the clam to see if there's anything harmful in that meat. And it's shown that red tide is not harmful to our clams. Now, it's harmful to humans to consume, of course, or, however they get red tide through swimming, anything like that. But it is not harmful to a clam. A clam is just as happy to eat that algae bloom as it is other algae.
Thrive upon it. That's what they eat.
Right.
Absolutely. So actually, could clams be the solution to red tide?
I think they could be a very big help to that. And there has been a lot of studies done on that, and people are using clams to clean up waterways like that.
Is that a totally different economic opportunity? Is actually an environmental side that clams could be utilized?
It could very well be. And I think, like I've stated, we are only 30 years old of an industry. We are still learning so much every day about what we can do in our waters, because we have to protect our waters the same way we have to protect our land. This is our heritage, from the land to the water, and both need to be protected.
Absolutely. So talk about the economic impact. It has a huge part here in Levy County, but across the state. How can we protect an industry that is so vital to Cedar Key?
I would say by education. If more people know about what we do out here, you could save our industry. Because if we just fall through the cracks over here, if we let it die with the generation before us, we won't obviously have an industry. But the more we're able to educate people about just what clam farming is and all the benefits that come from it, we could thrive. And it's very exciting to think about what this industry could be in the next 30 years. We've come so far from being taught, of course I wasn't there, but being taught 30 years ago how to farm. It is my future. It was my dad's dream for us. And there's nothing I want to do besides this. So I do pray that through allowing people to learn about clam farming, we can make this an even bigger economic impact than it already is.
Cedar Key Aquaculture Farms. How many other farms are there in Cedar Key that are involved in clam production?
There is a lot. So we have around 200 AQ holders, which are our aquaculture certifications to farm. Not everybody is active, of course. But I would say, if I'm just giving a rough number, I would say there's about 5 wholesale shops in the Cedar Key area. Some are off island. But I would say about 5 wholesale shops, and then at least 100 active farmers, I would say.
That helps educate me even on how big this is here, because with 100 farmers, 5 wholesale houses, it's huge. And I mean, there are a lot of families dependent on this industry. Yes. And education is a vital part of who we are. And that's what part of what we do with Farm Bureau and this podcast is reaching people that don't know. I mean, some people don't even know where Cedar Key is. And yet they like clams, and they want to continue to eat clams, and they want to eat American grown clams because they know what's in that clam, and they want to support it, and what a blessing it is. Yes. Sarah, you've been helpful to me. I've learned a lot today, and I'm sure the listeners have as well. Is there anything that you would like to kind of wrap up? One last thing you'd like to tell everybody?
If I had one thing to say to anybody listening, it would be farming is not a one size fits all. We need farmers every day, and we will need them every single day moving forward. So do not let anything stop you from wanting to get involved in farming. And Farm Bureau is an excellent resource to get everybody involved. Contact somebody. They will help you get started. They will pass information on to you for you to learn on your own, anything like that. And just do research on your own. Do not think that, I can't get involved in farming. My dad wasn't a farmer. There's room for everybody at the table. And I just would love to encourage people to get involved. Again, it's just, I don't want to see farming become a dying breed.
Well, here you have it, Sarah Solano. Boy, what I've learned a lot today. Thank you for the inspiration of folks to get involved in agriculture. Thank you for the education on a very vital industry here in Levy County, Florida. We appreciate you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting the Rural Recharge podcast. We hope that you are enjoying these conversations brought to you by farmers for your benefit. While you're here, please consider giving us a rating or a review. It really does help us to continue to share the stories of our Florida farm families and the important impact they have on your community. Thank you, and have a great day.